They set out on a Caribbean honeymoon. But by dawn, the couple had vanished. Cabins untouched, belongings abandoned, no one saw a thing. For 16 years the ocean kept its secret, until a single camera finally revealed the truth. Tell us in the comments where you are watching from and the time. Let's go on. The morning sun hit the Georgia port hard on July 5th, as passengers lined up toward the MS Dreamship, ready for a week in the Caribbean. Among them were Grace and Michael Parker, newlyweds from Greenville, South Carolina, both 29, just married days earlier in a backyard ceremony, still glowing, still in that quiet, private bubble new couples fall into. Their honeymoon was a gift from Grace's parents, an all-inclusive cruise through Freeport, St. Thomas, and the Dominican Republic. Michael taught high school biology, the steady, measured type. Grace was the opposite, bright, talkative, artistic, always wearing her vintage Minolta across her chest, always snapping the world before it could settle. They'd been together since college, inseparable, assigned to cabin C-113 on the starboard lower deck, small but comfortable. The ship left Georgia at 4 p.m., slipping into open water by nightfall. Over the next few days, other passengers remembered them often, laughing during evening shows, dancing under the deck lights, sharing cocktails at the Horizon Lounge. Grace talked to everyone, snapped photos of strangers, promised to mail them after the trip. That camera she carried, the one she never put down, would later expose what people missed in plain sight. But even on that first night, something around them had already begun to shift, and the first real sign would surface before sunrise on day 3. The night of July 9th felt ordinary, calm seas, soft music drifting out of the Coral Reef restaurant. Grace and Michael Parker sat together, dressed for formal night, smiling, relaxed, and yet several passengers would later say the same thing. Something about the couple that night felt slightly off, like they were enjoying a moment they didn't know would be their last. It was the final confirmed sighting. By the morning of July 10th, the ship's atmosphere shifted in tiny, almost invisible ways, a kind of quiet wrongness. Javier Fernandez, steward for Deck B, opened cabin C-113. He paused. The bed looked untouched. Their luggage remained half unpacked. Grace's camera was gone. Michael's watch, the one he never removed, sat on the nightstand. At first the crew made simple assumptions. Overslept, early excursion, newlyweds disappearing into their own world, totally normal. But when the ship reached Freeport, the Parkers didn't check in. Their names weren't on any excursion logs. No staff had seen them since the night before. At 3 p.m., Captain Raymond Holtz was notified. He ordered a full ship-wide search, public decks, restricted areas, crew corridors, even the engine room, nothing, not one trace. The next day in San Juan, things escalated. The Coast Guard was alerted. The U.S. consulate informed. A formal missing persons report was filed. The remaining itinerary was cancelled, and the ship turned back toward Georgia with investigators already questioning passengers. But every interview hit the same wall. No one saw the Parkers after July 9th. No arguments, no noise, no struggle, no charges on their onboard accounts. It was as if the couple had simply stepped out of reality. The FBI joined the investigation. Foul play was considered. Accident was considered, and darker possibilities too. Maybe they were pushed overboard. But investigators kept returning to one detail: the missing camera, the only item Grace never let leave her hands. And the first true break in the case wouldn't come from the ship at all. It would surface days later, far from the Caribbean waters where they vanished. Most people will scroll away and forget this ever happened. But not you. You have stayed. So please subscribe, because some mind-blowing stories are coming your way. Special Agent Vanessa Cross took over the case in July 2006, sharp, methodical, unimpressed by easy explanations, and from the moment she reviewed the first report, one detail gnawed at her. This disappearance looked too clean. There had been no storms that night, no rough seas, no wet decks, nothing that suggested anyone slipped, stumbled, or was pushed overboard. Vanessa later said, "Couples don't just vanish mid-cruise without leaving a trace. Not couples like the Parkers. She started with family interviews. Grace's sister insisted the newlyweds were genuinely in love. No instability, no hidden conflict. Michael's co-workers described him as steady, reliable, not the type to disappear on impulse. No big insurance payouts, no financial stress, nothing that created motive. Then came the ship's security logs. Vanessa combed through them. No alarms, no suspicious card swipes. The door to C-113 was last opened at 10:45 p.m. on July 9th. Presumably the couple returning from dinner after that. Silence. Some of Grace's films had been developed earlier on July 8th. Passengers laughing, a calm sunset, Michael standing alone, looking out at the horizon in a moment that seemed almost too still. But the last roll, the one inside her missing Minolta, was never found, and that missing camera, every time Vanessa reviewed the case file she circled it again, the only object Grace guarded more fiercely than anything else. By early 2006, the investigation stalled. No evidence, no leads, no sightings. The case faded from headlines, filed away as another unresolved maritime disappearance. But what investigators didn't know was that the story wasn't finished, because nearly a decade later, something would surface that forced them to reopen everything. The families never stopped, not even when everyone else did, and yet for all their effort, every trail they chased seemed to sink into the same quiet void, as if the ocean itself was hiding something. Grace's mother, Margaret Collins, spent years writing letters senators, travel agencies, cruise executives, anyone who might listen, begging, pleading, hoping. Michael's younger brother, Thomas, Parker, refused to sit still. He flew to Freeport, to Puerto Plata, paid his own way, spoke to fishermen, dock workers, harbour crews. But no one saw anything. No one remembered the names. The world had moved on. In 2011, Eastern Caribbean Voyages sold the MS Dreamship. New owner, new name. Cabin C-113 remodeled, renumbered. The past quietly erased. By 2016, the Parkers were almost forgotten outside South Carolina. Another pair of faces in a long list of cruise ship vanishings. No fraud, no ransom, no remains, just silence. And then time kept moving, until nearly 16 years later, something finally broke the stillness. May 2022, southern coast of the Dominican Republic, near the small, mostly unknown fishing village of Playa Escondida. A forgotten cove battered by tides. A place locals visited, but tourists never found. That morning, a fisherman named Daniel Torres walked the shoreline after a night storm tore through the bay. Debris scattered everywhere, branches, plastics, seaweed clumped in thick tangles. Then he saw it. A duffel bag wedged beneath volcanic rocks, eroded, heavy with water, seaweed wrapped around it like roots. Daniel yanked it free. The zipper was rusted shut, but the fabric held. Somehow, after years in the water, it held. He dragged it back to the village, grabbed a neighbour. Together they forced it open. And the moment the zipper cracked apart, one object inside made Daniel freeze, an object investigators had searched for since 2006. What the bag contained would not only revive the Parker case, it would rewrite it. And the first thing pulled from that soaked bag was the piece no one ever expected to see again. Daniel and his neighbour pried the duffel open, not knowing they were about to pull 16 years of silence back into the light. And from the moment the first item slid out, the bag stopped being debris. It became a crime scene. Inside were 2 deteriorated US passports, a woman's compact camera, a water-damaged notebook, postcards warped by salt, a small jewelry box, torn fabric fragments clinging to everything like seaweed. Most of the notebook pages were smeared beyond saving, but the camera, weathered, corroded but intact, still held a 35mm film roll sealed in its metal canister. Daniel brought the passports to the police station in Barahona. The officer entered the names into their system. 2 matches flashed instantly. Michael Parker, Grace Parker, missing since 2006. Within hours, the U.S. Embassy in Santo Domingo was notified. The entire collection was secured and flown to Quantico for analysis. The priority was clear: develop the film from Grace's long-missing camera. It wasn't easy. The film was warped, waterlogged, fragile. It took several attempts and careful chemical treatment, but somehow 6 frames survived. Grainy, faded, edges eaten by time, but visible. Frame 1, Grace beside a lifeboat in a red sundress, smiling like nothing in the world was wrong. Frame 2, a blurry shot of the moonlit ocean taken from the deck. Frame 3, Michael at dinner, raising a glass of wine. Frame 4, a man in a white uniform standing near a storage hatch on the outer deck, not a known crew member, his face half lost in glare. Frame 5, a self-timer photo of Grace and Michael in what looked like a lower utility corridor. Nervous smiles. A place passengers were never supposed to be. Frame 6, darkness swallowing most of the frame, but not all. An open hatch, the ocean far below. A bent handrail twisted at a strange angle. When the Parker case officially reopened in July 2021, the silence of 16 years broke all at once, and from her first hour on the file, Special Agent Alison Drake sensed something the original team had missed. A human presence hiding between the lines. Drake was a 24-year veteran. Maritime cases were her specialty. She received everything, the old reports, the Dominican Republic items, and the newly restored photographs. She started with the passenger manifest from 2006, more than 900 people on that cruise. Only about 60 had ever been interviewed. Mostly neighbours, restaurant staff, entertainers, a tiny slice of the ship's population. But the new photos changed the landscape, especially the 4th frame, the man in the white uniform beside a restricted hatch. Quantico's enhancement team pushed the grainy image as far as they could. Slowly, features emerged, a crew-style uniform, but not one matching the MS Dream's records. A scar slicing over the left eye, and along the right edge of the frame, barely visible, a maintenance cart, old, outdated, the kind contractors used, not full-time crew. Here is your text converted into clean, short sentences only. No additions, no removals, just broken down exactly the way we always do. Drake dug into employment logs from 2006. It wasn't easy. A company merger in 2008 had shredded the paper trail. Many files were missing, mislabeled or erased, but she kept going. Finally, she found a partial list of subcontracted maintenance workers assigned to that specific voyage. Only a handful of names survived intact. One of them jumped out immediately. Hugo Fernandez, Panamanian national, contract cleaner, age 41 at the time, no US criminal record. But Interpol had something different. A sealed report tying Fernandez to a violent incident aboard a commercial ferry in 2002, 1 passenger missing. Circumstances never fully explained. And the moment Drake saw the photo again, the glare hiding half the man's face, the scar over the Parker, she realized this wasn't just a blurry image from a damaged roll. It was a warning the couple had accidentally captured. Now Drake had a name, a face and a past, but Fernandez himself had vanished almost as completely as the Parkers, and the first lead on his whereabouts would come from a place no one expected. Fernandez had vanished in 2006. No tax records, no border crossings, no visa renewals, gone from every system. And every disappearance after that made the Parkers' fate feel more like a deliberate erasure than a simple accident. Drake started calling surviving crew members. Many retired, some ignored her, a few answered. Tony Delgado had been a bartender on the upper deck in 2006. She showed him the enhanced photo. His reaction was instant. "Yeah, I remember that guy. We called him El Silencio, never talked, always mopping around the restricted decks at night, gave me the creeps." Rosa Vega, housekeeping on Deck B, remembered a faint scream on the night of July 9th. She reported it to security. They said it was probably a drunk passenger and sent her back to work. Neither of these accounts had ever appeared in the original file. Drake turned her attention to the photo of the open hatch and bent handrail. Using archive diagrams of the ship, she pinpointed the location, starboard maintenance corridor near the emergency vent access. A narrow gated area for technical staff only, no cameras, supposedly locked, access only via maintenance override keys. If the Parkers ended up there, willingly or not, one could have been coerced, the other following trusting. The pieces were starting to fit together, but big questions remained. What happened after that photo? Why was Grace's bag only found years later, hundreds of miles from the ship, and the camera, still sealed with its last roll, might finally hold the answer? The Parkers had vanished in one place. Their belongings resurfaced in another. Someone had moved them, but who? Drake was about to trace that path, starting with a man who had watched the couple that night and never spoken a word until now. To figure out how Grace's duffel ended up on a beach near Playa Escondida, more than 400 nautical miles from the cruise path, Drake turned to the experts, and what they revealed made the story of a simple disappearance far darker than anyone had imagined. She consulted NOAA and Dr. Daniel Rivera, a specialist in ocean drift modeling. Using historical weather data and satellite records, Dr. Rivera reconstructed the Caribbean currents from 2006 to 2021. The results were chilling. If the bag had entered the water near the eastern coast of the Dominican Republic, through a hatch, drainage system, or overboard, prevailing currents could carry it in a slow clockwise loop, riding the north equatorial current. Over 16 years, it could drift near Puerto Rico, move east into open waters, then circle west toward the southern coast. Seasonal eddies, hurricane-driven currents, and tidal pockets could trap and release it over and over, Dr. Rivera told Drake. Objects taken into the Caribbean can vanish for years and reappear hundreds of miles away, but this bag, it was too well preserved, likely trapped under reefs, only recently dislodged. The implication was terrifying. The Parkers' bodies, or other evidence, might still be underwater, hidden in ship access points never fully searched. Among the recovered items, the water-damaged notebook stood out. Grace's travel journal. Most pages ruined, but one fragment survived. Forensic ink enhancement at Quantico revealed a partial sentence. He said we shouldn't be here, not safe. Mike thinks he's lying, and for the first time Grace's own words, the voice frozen inside her journal, confirmed that something went terribly wrong before the disappearance. Someone had warned them, someone they trusted, perhaps even the man in white, and now Drake had a new focus, tracing who he was and why Grace believed Mike might have been deceived. The journal entry couldn't be dated precisely. Context was unclear, but the message was unmistakable. Someone had led the Parkers somewhere they shouldn't have been, and Grace sensed danger. For Drake, the implication was clear. This wasn't an accident, not confusion, not intoxication. Someone had intentionally put them at risk, and more than one person could be involved. In late August 2021, a call came from Colon, Panama. A man refused to give his full name at first. He claimed he had worked on a Caribbean cruise ship in the mid-2000s. He recognized the man in the photo, the scar over the eye. "That's Fernandez's," he said. "We all knew he was trouble." He identified himself only as Diego and agreed to speak in San Jose, Costa Rica, where he now lived under a different name. Diego revealed Fernandez's history in 2004. He was caught breaking into a passenger cabin, quietly covered up by the cruise line, no official termination. Contract ended early, removed from crew logs. The 2006 Parker cruise was among his last assignments. He added another detail that chilled Drake. Fernandez had access to a private key ring, letting him into secured hatches and maintenance corridors, areas reserved for senior engineering staff. "No one ever checked how he got those keys," Diego said. "He had something on someone. Blackmail, maybe. I don't know. But he walked places no cleaner ever should have." And now the pieces connected back to the man in the white uniform. The same figure captured in Grace's last photo, still unexplained after all these years. Fernandez had the means, he had the access. But where was he now? And what had he done with the Parkers that night? Drake knew the next step required tracking Fernandez directly, a search that could finally reveal why the couple had vanished so completely. Evidence was pointing sharply toward foul play, restricted areas, tampered access, hidden corridors, and Drake realized the answers might lie not in reports, interviews, or photos, but beneath the sea itself. She submitted a formal request to the U.S. Maritime Recovery Commission for a targeted underwater search. The MS Dreamship had been renamed and rebranded in the 2010s, retrofitted. But original design records survived at Lloyd's Register in London: maintenance corridors, bilge spaces, auxiliary drain routes, many never inspected. One structure caught her eye, a sealed utility shaft beneath the starboard deck, adjacent to the corridor in Grace's final photo. It led to a discharge port used to release treated grey water. Tampered, it could send objects, or people, silently into open water. Drake partnered with a private salvage company near Grand Turk, where the ship had passed in 2006, side-scan sonar, submersible drones. Weeks of scanning areas where the vessel had slowed or drifted according to archived navigation logs. On September 17th, something unusual appeared on the seabed at 124 feet. A metal frame of a cruise utility locker, hinges broken, door missing, faded paint still visible, property of Eastern Caribbean Voyages Limited. Inside were coiled cable, rusted tools, and one sealed plastic vacuum pouch. Inside the pouch a crew access card, name printed clearly, E. Fernandez. Fernandez had vanished from the records in 2006, yet here his card surfaced in the exact region the ship crossed after the Parkers were last seen. The photo, the keys, the journal, everything connected. Someone had tried to erase the link, but now the evidence floated back to the surface, impossible to ignore. And with Fernandez's card finally recovered, Drake had her first tangible lead to place him, and the Parkers, together in the final fatal moments. The goal was now painfully clear: find the bodies, and Drake knew it wouldn't be easy. The ocean doesn't give up its secrets willingly. She coordinated with the U.S. Navy's underwater forensics team. The search radius expanded, guided by tidal models. The seabed was jagged, coral shelves, sunken debris, trench-like crevices where something could hide, bones, fibers, personal items. On October 6, 2021, a remotely operated vehicle spotted them, a pair of white sneakers half buried in silt near a rock ledge. Nearby, the corroded frame of a camera lens, Grace's model. DNA testing confirmed it. The lace fibers matched the shoes Grace wore in one of the final photos. No bodies were recovered. The ocean had likely claimed them long ago, dispersing or burying remains beyond reach. Still, for the families, it was the closest thing to closure in over a decade. Fernandez was never found. Interpol issued a red notice, no activity surfaced. Theories swirled: suicide, new identity, or protection from accomplices. In 2022, a maritime commission officially ruled the Parker case a presumed homicide by unknown individuals. The cruise line quietly settled financially with the families, admitting nothing. Most of the recovered photos remain sealed in the FBI archives. One exception: the final image of Grace and Michael in the corridor, nervously smiling, holding each other. It sits in a frame on Grace's mother's mantel, flanked by 2 candles lit every July 9th. That camera, the one Grace carried like a lifeline, had finally told its story. 16 years later, they never got their honeymoon. But for the first time, the Parker story had an ending the world could finally see, and every July 9th the candles remind those left behind that some moments, though stolen, are never completely lost. The families finally felt a fragile peace. After 16 years of silence, the Parker story had returned from the shadows, bringing memory instead of mystery. Grace's mother, Margaret, placed the framed photo on the mantel. The nervous smiles frozen in the corridor captured the love that no tragedy could erase. Michael's brother Thomas visited the sea near Georgia, scattering flowers in their honor. Though their bodies were never recovered, the personal items and photographs told a story of life, love, and courage, moments the world would never forget. The families had closure, not in the form of answers to every question, but in the certainty that the couple's bond endured. The cruise line quietly settled with the families. The official ruling confirmed presumed homicide, and Fernandez's whereabouts remained a mystery. But the Parkers' legacy had finally been restored. And the camera, Grace's constant companion, had spoken the truth when nothing else could, preserving the last fragments of their lives. Happy ending beat. Every July 9th, candles were lit. Family and friends remembered their love, their joy, and the life they had built in the short time they had. Grace and Michael's story, though tragic, became a testament to devotion and remembrance, and somewhere in the Caribbean another mystery waited, hidden in the shadows of the waves, ready to challenge investigators all over again.